They say some storms just pass. Others leave something behind. I didn't know which kind I was walking into, only that when it was over, I wouldn't be the same man crawling out. It started with the rain. Not the polite kind that pats rooftops and feeds gardens, but the mean kind. Heavy. Inescapable. Like the sky was purging something, and we were just collateral. I'd seen hurricanes before. You grow up in southern Louisiana, they teach you how to board windows before you learn to read. But this one? I'd have had a mean streak. Took her sweet time swirling in place offshore like she was stretching before a fight. By the time it hit land, it wasn't a storm, it was a reckoning. My name's Noah. Yeah. Go ahead. Get the arc jokes out now. 36, HVAC tech, occasional generator whisperer. Lived in a single wide about 4 miles from town, on land my uncle left me and FEMA forgot. Every year I patched the roof and prayed the river wouldn't rise. That morning, I was on call. Dumb idea, I know. But folks were panicking. Power lines dropping like flies. AC units blown out. One old couple needed their sump pump working or they were gonna drown in their basement. I took the job. Couldn't afford not to. The water came faster than the Weather Channel warned. 1 minute I was elbow deep in a fried fuse box. The next I was wading through brown sludge waist high in the Lowe's parking lot. Cars floated like bath toys. A fridge zipped by like it had somewhere to be. And then I saw it. A black Cadillac, half submerged near the old overpass that cuts across Route 6. Driver's side door jammed against a fallen light pole. I saw the movement first, a flailing arm, weak and slow, like someone waving underwater. No sirens. No one else around. Just me, my soggy boots, and the gut-sinking knowledge that I was the only idiot close enough to try. I didn't think. That's the truth. I just ran. Splashed through chest-deep muck. The kind that sticks to your soul, not just your skin. The current fought me. Pulled like it wanted a second victim. But I got there. The window was down just enough to get a hand in. Inside, an older man, late 60s maybe. Sharp cheekbones, bleeding from the scalp, eyes glassy. He wasn't panicking. He was fading. Hey, I yelled, jamming my shoulder against the door. You with me? He blinked, coughed something that sounded like, leave it. Not a chance. Took everything I had to wedge the door enough to slip an arm in, unbuckle him, and yank him out. He collapsed into me like a sack of bricks. Expensive suit soaked. Shoes probably worth more than my truck. We floated back together, me kicking against the flood like a madman. He mumbled something sounded like Julian before blacking out. By the time I got him onto dry concrete near the IGA loading dock, I could hear sirens again. Too late. I'd already done the hard part. He coughed water, then blood. Looked at me like I was a mirage. I asked his name. He just whispered, Emery. Didn't hit me till hours later. When I got back to my trailer, half my tools gone, everything damp, my hands shaking too bad to hold a beer. I flipped on the battery radio. Listened to the storm damage updates. Then I heard the name. Emery Vance, real estate magnate and political donor, reportedly rescued from rising floodwaters. My jaw locked. That man was Emery Vance? I thought about the headlines I'd seen in checkout lines. Vance Corp buys entire city block. Emery Vance accused of shady land dealings, cleared again. That guy had more lawyers than I had socks. And I'd pulled him out like a rag doll. I figured that was the end of it. Maybe he'd send a check. Maybe not. People like him don't usually remember the help. Then the Lincoln came. 2 days later. I was scrubbing mold off my floorboards when it pulled up out front, clean, silent, black paint so polished I could see my stunned expression in it. Rear window rolled down, slow. And there he was. Bandaged but alive. Sunglasses even though the clouds hadn't lifted yet. You're hard to find, he said. I stood, jaw clenched. Didn't know you were looking, Dot. He smiled. Not warm. Not cruel. Just calculating. Get in. I hesitated. Looked back at my trailer. Then at the man I dragged through hell. And something in me shifted. Not curiosity. Not greed. Hope, maybe. Hope that this wasn't just a thank you. But the start of something bigger. The car smelled like old leather and money. Not the crumpled singles kind, either. The kind of wealth that sat in bank vaults so long it has a temperature. I didn't say much as the Lincoln rolled through what was left of our town, boarded windows, sagging porches, stray dogs wading through street ponds. Emery sat across from me, legs crossed like he was in a boardroom and not being chauffeured through a disaster zone. You ever been out of this place? He asked, voice calm as a still lake. I shrugged. Went to Baton Rouge once. Saw a Saints game when I was a kid. He smiled faintly, like he'd expected the answer. This town's a pit, he said. No offense. None taken. I muttered, watching a National Guard truck crawl past us. You've got hands, he continued. I watched them work. Saw the way you didn't think twice before jumping into a flood. You know how rare that is. I don't know. Thought it was just decency. Exactly. It's extinct. He looked out the window. Most people wait for someone else to act. You didn't. The car turned onto a private road I'd never noticed before. Gravel crunched under tires as we passed between two iron gates, one half hanging from the storm, the other still proud and polished. At the end of the drive, a mansion. Not Southern Belle with white columns. This was modern. Stone, steel, glass. It looked like someone dropped a bank vault in the bayou and gave it Wi-Fi. Nice place, I said, trying not to gawk. Backup property, he replied. Main one's in Baton Rouge. This is for bad days. A man opened the door before we'd stopped rolling. Emery stepped out like a king returning to court. I hesitated a second before following. My boots squished. Inside, the air conditioning hit like mountain air. Cool. Dry. Removed. The hallway was lined with oil paintings that looked expensive and slightly angry. I passed a sculpture I'm pretty sure was just a twisted coat hanger, but probably worth more than my trailer. He led me into a study. Wood-paneled. Fireplace unlit but intimidating. A decanter waited on a side table like it knew it was time. Drink. No, sir. He poured himself 2 fingers anyway and sat down behind a desk that looked like it could survive a tank round. I owe you my life, he said, swirling the glass. I didn't do it for that. I know. He set the glass down. That's why it matters. He leaned back, studying me. I want to make you an offer. I braced. Here it comes. A job cleaning his gutters. Maybe. A hush payment. Something weird. I have properties, he said. Too many. Too distant. I used to be hands-on. Now I'm less so. Storms like this? They expose weaknesses. Bad managers. Greedy caretakers. You with me? I think so. I need eyes. Hands. Someone who can walk into a mess and tell the difference between rot and wear. Someone who knows when to fix and when to walk away. He opened a drawer, pulled out a folder, pushed it across to me. Inside, a photo of a small motel, single-story, faded sign, surrounded by water. The caption read, Bayway Inn, Holdings Asset Number 312. Bought it last year through a tax lien bundle, he said. Didn't think twice. Now it's half underwater and hemorrhaging cash. You want me to fix it? I want you to run it. Rebuild it. From the ground up, if you have to. Make it profitable. Make it clean. I'll fund the restoration, limited budget. But if you can turn it around in 6 months, you keep 30% ownership. I blinked. Wait, 30. He nodded. That's generous. No, he said, sipping his drink. It's strategic. I'm not paying you for labor. I'm investing in you. Big difference. I looked down at the photo again. The motel was ugly. Swamped. Moldy, probably. But it was real. A shot. A path. Why me? I asked quietly. Emery leaned forward. His eyes were sharp, like he was seeing all the gears inside my skull. Because you did the right thing when no one was looking. That's the only credential that matters to me. I sat back, breath caught in my throat. He didn't try to sell me more. Just let the weight of it settle. Say I take it, I said. What's the catch? His expression didn't change. You fail, you walk with nothing. No salary, no severance. Just the experience. And you answer only to me. I thought about my trailer. My dead-end jobs. The flood water still soaking my socks. I'm in, I said, before I could talk myself out of it. Emery smiled. Real this time. Then get some rest, he said. Your life starts tomorrow. The Bayway Inn looked like it had lost a bar fight with the apocalypse. I got there the next morning in a rented pickup, a duffel of tools on the passenger seat, and Emery's contract burning a hole in my glove box. The water had receded, but not fast enough to keep the mildew from carving its initials into every surface. The sign buzzed without lighting up, and a pelican had claimed the roof like a squatter. 12 rooms. 1 office. 0 hope. I parked under a leaning palm tree that looked embarrassed to still be standing. The front office door creaked like it knew I didn't belong. Inside, the air smelled like bleach and resignation. Behind the front desk sat a kid, maybe 19, maybe just prematurely jaded, staring at a cracked phone screen. He looked up when I walked in. Check in. No, I said. I'm the new manager. He blinked. We had an old one? I nodded slowly. Where is he? Quit last week. Said the water had ghosts in it. That sounded about right. I found his office behind a curtain of cigarette smoke and unpaid invoices. There was a half-finished crossword on the desk and a bottle of gin in the drawer. Classy exit. I spent the day cataloging the wreckage. Rooms 1 through 4. Mold blooms, warped doors, toilets backed up like angry ghosts. Rooms 5 and 6 were slightly better, less rot, more roaches. The rest were just degrees of failure. I took notes. Took photos. Took a deep breath I instantly regretted. That night, I checked myself into room 11, only one with semi-functioning AC, and lay on the bed staring at a ceiling fan that spun like it was drunk. I wasn't overwhelmed yet. Just sober. This wasn't a TV turnaround story. There wasn't a montage coming to save me. There were just rusted pipes, unpaid bills, and a cracked foundation, literal and otherwise. But it was mine. That mattered. The next morning, I made a list. Fix the plumbing. Patch the roof. Get rid of the mold before it started talking back. That meant money. Emery had given me a budget, but it was lean. I'd have to hustle. So I made calls. 3 local contractors. One answered. He was skeptical but curious. Said he'd swing by if the bridge reopened. I put up a help wanted sign out front. That's when she walked in. Mid-30s, storm-colored hair, attitude like barbed wire. She marched through the broken front door like she'd kicked it open. You hiring? She asked, holding up the sign like it offended her. Depends. You got experience. I've cleaned blood, mold, and beer out of carpets. Worked front desk at 3 different motels. Fired from 2. Why fired? Honesty issues. I raised an eyebrow. I was too honest, she clarified. Told a guest he was a pig. He was. What's your name? Darla. I paused. You're hired. She blinked. Seriously. You showed up. That puts you ahead of 90% of humanity right now. She grinned. Fair enough. You the owner? I hesitated. Something like that. By the afternoon, she'd cleaned 2 rooms with a ferocity that scared the cockroaches into the walls. She didn't ask questions. Just worked. Efficient. Sharp. You don't strike me as motel material, I said as she stripped a mattress with military precision. You don't strike me as someone who should be running one, she shot back. We stared at each other. Then laughed. It was the first time the place felt alive. Later that evening, I was scrubbing out the lobby bathroom when I found the envelope. Tucked behind the cistern, half wrapped in plastic. Moldy but legible. Inside, a list of names. Guest records. Cash-only stays. Check-ins that didn't exist in the ledger. And a photo. 2 men. One of them the former manager. The other? Emery. They were standing side by side in front of the Bayway sign. Smiling. Like co-conspirators. I stared at that photo long after the sun dipped behind the mangroves. Because Emery never mentioned a connection. Never said he'd been here before. Never said he knew the man who ran this place into the ground. And suddenly, I wasn't so sure I'd been given a gift. Maybe I'd been given a cleanup job. One with shadows in every corner. But I'd already signed the papers. Already put skin in the game. So I slid the photo into my toolbox. And told myself, I didn't save a man from drowning just to let secrets sink me now. I didn't sleep much that night. The Bayway made noise, pipes knocking, walls creaking, bugs whispering secrets in the dark. But what kept me awake was that photo. Emery and the ex-manager, arm in arm like 2 frat brothers at a reunion. It didn't fit. Emery had said he bought the place through a lean bundle. Had acted like it was just another forgotten asset. So why the hell was he smiling in front of the Bayway like it meant something? By sunrise, I'd already made up my mind. I needed answers. I started with the paper trail. The previous manager's name was Dennis Keller. The office still had his records, though most were water-stained and barely legible. But a few invoices were intact. One jumped out. Vance Golf Holdings LLC paid Dennis a consulting retainer, monthly, under the table, not through payroll. It was disguised as property analysis. Consulting? On a motel that barely stood upright? Darla caught me poring over the records at the front desk. You look like you just read your own obituary, she said, sipping black coffee that smelled like gasoline. I found something, I muttered. About the guy who ran this place. Keller, she asked, sitting on the counter. Yeah, I met him once. Real greasy energy. Used to brag about how much cash moved through here. Cash from what? We've had 2 guests since I showed up, and one of them left in the middle of the night without his pants. She shrugged. Ask around town. Everyone knows something, they just don't want to say it first. So I did. I made a trip into Riverton, the closest thing to a town still standing after the flood. Stopped at the hardware store, the diner, even a bait shop that smelled like regret and dead shrimp. Same reaction every time. The second I mentioned the Bayway, people changed. A little quieter. A little more closed off. But the same phrase kept popping up. Place had traffic. That word. Traffic. Like a polite nod towards something worse. Finally, an old guy at the gas station leaned in and whispered, cops knew. Everyone knew. Hell, the lights on the lot used to blink a certain way when it was open for business. What kind of business? He just looked at me. Didn't answer. Didn't need to. I drove back with that in my gut, sour and hot. Back at the Bayway, Darla was arguing with a county inspector who'd shown up unannounced. "Where's your occupancy permit?" the man barked. "We're not open yet," I said, stepping between them. "You've got work happening. Lights on. Employees. We're cleaning up. Renovating." He snorted. "You've got 7 days to file the proper paperwork or you'll be fined. And if we find out guests are staying here before it's approved." "I get it," I snapped. "Thanks." He left in a puff of self-importance. "Nice guy," Darla said. "Bet he sleeps in silk sheets." I nodded absently. Because something didn't feel right. Why now? Why today? We'd been working in the open for a week. No complaints. No issues. And suddenly, here comes a county inspector from nowhere? I called Emery. He answered on the third ring. "You settled in?" he asked casually. "I found a photo," I said. "You and Keller." There was a pause. Long. Just air. Then, "I was wondering when you'd find that." "You knew him?" "Yes." "And you didn't think I should know? Would it have changed the job?" "It changes the trust." He sighed. "Dennis ran the place for me. I gave him the same offer I gave you. But he got greedy. Turned it into a side business I never sanctioned. I tried to shut it down quietly, but before I could, he vanished. Disappeared. Left me with a shell. That's it. He just disappeared. No trace. No police report. No body. Just gone. That didn't sit right. At all." "You think someone made him disappear?" "I think," Emery said carefully, "he crossed the wrong people. And now you're cleaning up the mess. Thanks for the heads up. You're still in, aren't you?" I looked around at the Bayway. At Darla scrubbing a door frame while humming to herself. At the cracked sign out front and the weeds growing through the lot. "I'm in," I said. "But I'm not going in blind again." "Good," Emery replied. "Because you're not just rebuilding that place. You're burying its past." The line went dead. I stood there for a moment, phone still to my ear. Then I opened my toolbox, pulled out that photo, and took a lighter to the corner. Let it burn just enough to erase the smile on Dennis Keller's face. Because if I was going to turn the Bayway into something clean, I'd need to burn everything dirty first. It started with the light. The security floodlight out by room 3 blinked at exactly 3:07 a.m. every night. Not before. Not after. Just one blink. A flicker, like a wink from something that remembered too much. I caught it by accident. Couldn't sleep, too much on my mind. Too many what-ifs pounding against the inside of my skull like fists on a locked door. I stepped out into the humid dark with a beer in hand and saw the flicker. That alone wouldn't have meant much. Faulty wiring, I figured. But the next night, it happened again. And the night after that. Same minute. Same light. And then, on the fourth night, a car pulled in at 3:08. Silver Buick. Tinted windows. It circled the lot slow, then parked under the busted light. The driver never got out. Just waited. 15 minutes later, a kid, couldn't have been older than 20, came walking up from the road. Got in. Buick drove off. No questions. No luggage. No return. Just gone. I told myself not to get involved. I was rebuilding a motel, not chasing ghosts. But that was a lie. I was already involved the moment Emery handed me the keys. That place had a past, and whether I wanted to or not, I was standing right on top of it. I started keeping a log. Who came? When? What they drove. Most stayed under 10 minutes. All cash. Never a name. Just room keys exchanged and silence like cement. I showed it to Darla a week later. She read the list, frowning harder with every line. "You think it's trafficking?" "I think it was. Maybe still is." She looked out the office window like she might see something move. "I used to work at a place like this," she said. "Didn't realize what it was till after. They used to say it wasn't our job to ask." "It is now," I said. She met my eyes. "Then we need cameras." We installed 2 the next day. One on the lot, one inside the front office, both set to loop and cloud sync. It wasn't much, but it was enough to see that traffic had patterns. A rhythm. Someone was still using the Bayway for side business. And they didn't care that the place had new management. Or maybe they did, and figured we'd keep our mouth shut like Keller did. That changed the night the Buick came back and found me waiting. I sat on the stoop of room 5, hands wrapped around a thermos of coffee and a flashlight tucked under my arm. I didn't look threatening. Just tired. Just watchful. The Buick rolled to a stop. Lights off. The driver stepped out. Tall guy. Hoodie. Moved like a shadow that had grown legs. "Can I help you?" I called. He froze. Head tilted slightly. Then turned without a word and got back in the car. Gone. No horn. No hurry. Just smoke and silence. Next morning, the security footage was gone. Erased. Not glitched, removed. Like someone had reached in and deleted the night. I checked the cloud backup. Same thing. Darla leaned over my shoulder, staring at the blank files. Someone's inside our system. I nodded. And they're telling us to mind our business. I called Emery. He picked up fast. We've got a problem, I said. You mean someone's still using the Bayway, he replied. Not surprised. Just resigned. You knew. I suspected. It's why I sent you. I nearly threw the phone. You sent me into a hornet's nest with a hammer and a handshake. You said you weren't going in blind anymore. That doesn't mean I wanted to get stung. He sighed. The people involved aren't small time. They used to work under the radar. Now they're getting sloppy. You showing up may have poked the wrong hive. Then you should have warned me. You want out? He asked. That gave me pause. I looked around at the Bayway. The peeling paint. The tools lined up in the office. Darla wiping down counters like she owned them. The little stack of receipts showing room 6 finally had 2 legit bookings next week. No, I said. I want them out. Emery's voice dropped. Then listen closely. He gave me a name, Victor Rains. Ex-cop. Now a fixer. He'd once worked security for Vance Gulf Holdings, back when Emery needed people who could flex muscle without legal baggage. He was Keller's go-to guy, Emery said. Paid through Shell LLCs, all under the table. If the Bayway still has strings being pulled, they lead to him. Where is he? Last I heard? Still local. Look for places where the lights never fully come on. He hung up. I jotted the name down. Victor Rains. It sounded like a villain in a paperback novel. But if he was real, if he was behind the midnight traffic, the threats, the silence, then I needed to find him. Because the Bayway wasn't just a fixer-upper anymore. It was bait. And someone out there still thought it was theirs. Victor Rains wasn't listed in the phone book. Not that I expected him to be. Guys like that don't leave trails, they leave scars. But I had a name, a town, and a reason that burned hotter than fear. I started small. At every dive bar, repair shop, an ex-cop watering hole from Riverton to Lake Shell. Showed a photo I found on a defunct security contractor site, grainy, low-res. But the jawline was a dead giveaway. A face like a steel trap that never opened unless it was biting down. Most people just shook their heads. Some lied and looked away. But on the 4th stop, an old man pouring beer at a place called the Bunker Bar gave me a long look and a longer pause. Rains don't come in here anymore, he said, voice low. Not since last spring. Left in a rush. Where to? The bartender glanced over both shoulders like we were in a spy movie. There's a storage facility up on Route 9, west of the refinery. He used to rent a unit there. Could be nothing. But if you're looking. I am. He wiped the counter with a rag that spread more dirt than it cleaned. Then watch your step. Rains don't play by the rules. Never has. The place he mentioned looked abandoned from the road. Rows of rusted units, chain-link fence sagging under its own weight, weeds pushing up through the gravel like fingers from a shallow grave. I parked 3 blocks down. Walked the last bit on foot. Dress light, gloves in my back pocket, flashlight clipped to my belt. The lock on Unit 19 was new. Too new. I pried it open with a crowbar, careful not to make noise. Inside, the air smelled of dust, oil, and copper wiring. No furniture. Just crates. Electrical panels. A workbench with tools laid out too neatly to be innocent. And in the corner, under a tarp, a stack of motel-style door placards. Room numbers, 3, 5, 7. My blood ran cold. Bayway rooms. This wasn't a storage unit. It was a workshop. I started taking photos. Evidence. Proof for Emery, for the police, hell, maybe even for Darla, who still thought we were just patching walls and fixing locks. That's when I heard it. Footsteps. Fast. Precise. Crunching gravel like teeth grinding together. I backed into the corner, heart in my throat, flashlight off. The door creaked. A beam of light swept the space. Then he stepped in. Victor Rains. He looked older than the photo, but not by much. Gray stubble, lean frame, eyes like dead screens. He held a gun like he didn't think he'd need it, but was ready to be wrong. He scanned the room. Stopped. Didn't expect company, he said. I stayed silent. Come out, or I start putting holes in crates. I moved. Slow. Hands up. Not armed. He squinted. You're the new manager, huh? Thought you'd be taller. You've been watching me? Course. That place isn't yours, no matter what Vance told you. It is now. He laughed once, sharp and dry. Kid, that motel is a front. Has been for a decade. You think a fresh coat of paint erases all that? No, I said. But I'm not letting you use it again. He tilted his head. Use it? Son, I built it. Every handshake deal, every drop point, every unmarked guest. I laid the pipes and wired the signals. You're squatting in a monument. Then consider this demolition. He raised the gun. And that's when I stepped sideways, hard, slamming the flashlight into the breaker panel. Sparks flew. Lights blew out. Darkness swallowed us whole. I dove low, felt a shot whip past my ear. Another slammed into the steel wall behind me with a clang that rattled my teeth. I scrambled, grabbed a crowbar from the floor, swung blindly. Connected. He grunted and hit the floor, the gun skittering across the concrete. I flicked the flashlight back on. He was bleeding from the scalp, eyes wide, breath heaving. "You think this is over?" he rasped. "No," I said. "I think this is the middle." I zip-tied his hands with cords from the bench, called the sheriff from a burner. Darla insisted I carry. Kept the gun on him while I waited. They showed up 20 minutes later. No sirens. Just hard boots and blank stares. The deputy cuffed him without questions. Didn't even ask for a statement. Like they'd been waiting. Like Emery knew this part of the script. As they drove away, Rains turned once in the back seat. Smiled. "You're in deeper than you know," he called. I didn't answer. Just watched the lights disappear down Route 9. Because he was right. I was in deep. But I wasn't drowning. Not yet. I didn't go back to the Bayway right away. After they hauled Rains off, I sat in the truck with the windows rolled down and my hands shaking just enough to keep me honest. The air smelled like burnt wires and adrenaline. I cracked something open, and I wasn't sure if it was over or just cracked deeper. I finally drove back at sunrise. The motel stood there like always, battered, beige, stubborn. Darla was already out front with a push broom, cussing at leaves. "You look like hell," she said without looking up. "I found our midnight man," I replied. She paused, lifted an eyebrow. "Rains?" I nodded. "Still breathing?" "Barely. He's with the sheriff." She gave a slow nod. "Then maybe this place gets a second chance." I didn't say what I was really thinking. That maybe we didn't deserve one. But the next few days moved fast. Faster than I expected. An investigator from Baton Rouge showed up with a briefcase and a badge he barely flashed. Asked a few quiet questions. Took a statement. Never smiled. Darla fed him lukewarm coffee and called him Detective Wet Blanket after he left. Then a lawyer came. One of Emery's, slick as soap and just as slippery. He handed me a new contract. Ownership terms. Expanded budget. Sealed nods and cryptic phrases like strategic asset cleansing and legacy repositioning. It sounded like corporate for "we're covering this up, but here's your reward." I read every page twice. Then signed. 30% of the Bayway. Real equity. Real name on paper. It wasn't just a job anymore. It was mine. The renovations kicked into overdrive. We brought in a real crew. Contractors who didn't blink when we told them to gut half the building. We stripped the rooms down to bones, pulled out pipes that smelled like regret, burned mattresses that could have told stories I didn't want to hear. New drywall. New signage. Fresh paint that didn't just cover the walls, it covered the past. But we kept one thing the same. Room 11. Mine. Cracked window, crooked ceiling fan, faint smell of rust. I needed the reminder. Of where I started. Of what I survived. I hung the burned corner of that photo, what was left of Keller and Emery, behind the door. A scar in a frame. Just enough to remember. Emery came down once, near the end. Drove himself. No entourage. He walked the property slowly, quietly, hands clasped behind his back like a man inspecting a tombstone. "It's better than I imagined," he said. "You imagine something?" "I always imagine the end of things. It's a bad habit." I didn't ask if he meant the Bayway, or Rains, or something deeper. He handed me an envelope. Inside, a check. $50,000. "Bonus," he said, "for handling the rot." I handed it back. He raised an eyebrow. "I'm not building something on bribes," I said. He studied me a moment, then pocketed the check without comment. "I didn't think you'd take it," he said. "Then why offer it?" "Because men like Rains would've." He turned, walked to his car, paused at the door. "This is your place now, Logan. But don't ever think the world forgets what a place was. Only people do." Then he drove off. I haven't seen him since. We reopened 2 months later. Bayway Inn. Same name, but different bones. We added solar, key cards, real security. Darla ran the front desk like a drill sergeant with a customer service smile. I fixed plumbing, rewired the entire East Wing, and slept like a man who finally stopped running. The first guest? A nurse, traveling from Baton Rouge. She checked in, complimented the paint, and asked if we were new. I told her, "We're rebuilt." She smiled. "Aren't we all?" Word got out. Quiet at first, then louder. Reviews rolled in, good ones. Folks liked the grit, the honesty. One travel blogger called us a phoenix built on swamp soil. I printed that one out, framed it in the lobby. 6 months later, we were at 80% occupancy and climbing. Locals started asking if they could book events. A wedding planner called about a Bayou destination elopement package. Darla laughed for an hour straight. I started writing it down. The story. All of it. Not just the storm or the motel or Emery's offer. The whole thing. Because someone asked me recently, how do you go from HVAC repairs to owning a business? And the truth is I didn't. I went from saving a drowning man to realizing no one was coming to save me. So I built something. Not perfect. Not pure. But mine. And sometimes, when the security light outside room 3 flickers at 3:07 a.m., I still wake up. But I don't reach for a flashlight anymore. I just smile. Because some ghosts don't haunt. They warn.